So today I'm at a family home where the mum and the dad both bought Nissan Leafs. They were early adopters, full EV, but it was getting too expensive. So they've swapped one of them already for a diesel C-Class. And this, I think, signifies why the EV is dead for now. Look, let's get into it. My name's Ben and welcome to Dadcars. So in 2018, your daily commute cost you about £2 and it's now going to cost you about £12. Over 700% increase.
Yeah.
So my brother bought this 5 years ago and it's been his faithful commuter. He does about 20,000 miles a year in it. But back when he first got it, it cost next to nothing to run. Whereas today, it is a completely different story. And I'll get into that in a minute. My sister-in-law has had an EV Nissan Leaf as well, up until very recently, when she swapped it for this Mercedes C-Class, the C220D, a diesel, because this is cheaper to run than her EV. So on looks alone, I know which one I'd go for. But today, I'm going to be taking both of these out for a drive and showing you the real world data, the reasons why it's actually more expensive to run an EV like that than a modern diesel. So I drove up today from Portsmouth in my Aston Martin, my 6-litre V12 Aston Martin. And we did some quick maths before jumping in this and calculated that if we did that same journey in an EV, around 330 miles using fast chargers only, it would only work out about £10 cheaper than if I did it in my Aston Martin, getting 21 miles per gallon. Look, I'll flash up the calculation that I did here on screen somewhere. And that is using standard fuel, which you can run my Aston Martin on. But just incredible. So driving from Portsmouth to Wales and back in the Aston Martin will cost me £10 more. And I'd quite happily spend that extra £10 to not have to wait at a supercharger with children on board. But what about this car? This car here, which was the full EV, was swapped for this. We did the same calculations and it would work out about half the price to do it in the diesel than to do it in the pure EV using fast chargers. How insane is that? So why I'm saying the EV is dead at the moment is that the game has completely changed. I mean, look, so my brother here, Jordan, so you got your first EV, all EV, didn't you, in when, 2018?
2018, that's it, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
And what did it cost per kilowatt hour when you first got your car in 2018?
So I was paying 9p per kilowatt hour.
9 pence per kilowatt hour, yeah. And I remember back then thinking, blimey, this is basically like free motoring. So that's why the whole idea of an EV was really appealing, wasn't it? Back then, 2018. So how much does it cost today per kilowatt hour?
So at the moment, the price cap is 67p per kilowatt hour. That's the current price cap.
67p?
67p is the current
and
price
what
cap, yeah.
And what was in 2018?
9p. So
what? That's like a what? Over 700?
740 odd % increase.
Over 700% increase since 2018.
Yeah.
And what I think is really alarming as well about that is just how much it's jumped up in the last, what, like 9 months, hasn't it? It's like towards the end of last year, everything just started doubling, didn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Really scary. So it's really volatile, isn't it? The price of electricity is very volatile.
So even if you had the longest range EV available right now and you were brave enough to try and do 330 miles round trip with your family on board from a full charge at home, with the current price cap, it would still be over £20 cheaper to do it in this diesel C-Class that I'm driving today. Insane.
So in 2018, your daily commute cost you about £2 and it's now going to cost you about £12.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
That's absolutely incredible,
That's
isn't it? This car probably isn't too far off of being cheaper to drive to work for you than,
that's it, yeah.
than your current one.
I'm on a fixed rate at the moment, so it's okay. Like, it still works out cheaper to drive my electric car if I charge from home at the moment.
Yeah.
But come August time, when my fixed price ends, and you're looking at 67p per kilowatt hour, I think I'll have to make some changes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you obviously, really early adopter, both you and your wife both had an EV at one point.
Yeah.
You know, you're all in on it, weren't
Yeah.
you? And you were right to do so. Look, and anybody I think who bought an EV a few years ago was correct to do so. What I'm trying to say is right now, it's not necessarily correct to do so right now, is it? And obviously it's going to change again, you know, when they figure things out. But obviously with a diesel car, there's other expenses as well, isn't there? Like this, road tax, what, £160 a year? Whereas with an EV, obviously you just don't have to pay road tax at all, do you? So.
Well, that's changing in 2025.
What?
Yeah. So it's going to be the same price as this in 2025. So £165, yeah, for all EVs.
In 2025, you're going to have to pay £160 a year road tax.
165, I think it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Crumbs. It really is. It really is completely changing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so funny because, the narrative for the longest time has been you'd be mad to buy a modern diesel now, you know, when you could buy an EV, but we really are on the cusp of it actually becoming more expensive to run an EV. So in recent years, you've been thinking that buying a diesel, you'd have to be crazy to do it. You know, with everything that's going on with like the ULEZ, which is ever growing as well. And the reason for that is older diesels, they emit nitrogen oxides. But modern diesels like this, with the AdBlue technology, it basically neutralizes most of that stuff. So this car is ULEZ compliant. And look, there's people out there who are running an EV and they're happy to pay the extra, they're happy to have the constraints of how far they can go, and their journey's taking longer. I mean, goodness me, if I had 4 children screaming in the back of a car on a long journey and then I had to wait at a supercharger for 45 minutes, I couldn't do it. But look, if you do all of that, purely because you want to be emitting the lowest amount of local carbon emissions that you possibly can, then look, I take my hat off to you. It's very commendable, because back in 2018 it was something that was very desirable and I couldn't wait to own my Taycan. But yeah, as things stand at the moment, that's not the case at all, is it? And what I just think is that people take cars for granted, much in the same way as you do turning a tap on and water coming out. A car is an ultimate expression of freedom. You know, if you own a car, you can go and get in that car, and in theory you can go anywhere on the planet within reason. However, with an EV, there is currently restrictions on that. I kind of picture it in my head that having an EV is like being an animal in a nature reserve. In some ways it's probably better, but eventually you will hit a fence. Whereas currently, with an internal combustion engine, you can roam wherever you want. This isn't even an example of a car which gives you the absolute best miles per gallon, and it's still absolutely trouncing the EV at the moment.
Okay, so running cost-wise, the diesel is coming out on top. But let's hop into an equivalent value pure EV and see if the driving experience is better.
Right, so I've jumped into the Nissan Leaf. Full EV Nissan Leaf, and I mean, what hits you straight away is just it's a completely different place to sit than the C-Class. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fine, you know, this is all looks very nice and modern, and you know, there's some nice contrast stitching here, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't feel very special at all. This feels to me like the type of dad car that I campaign against, if you know what I mean. Now, I'm saying that, but when my brother first got this car, and it was effectively free motoring, you know, you didn't even notice the increase in the bills on his electricity when he first got it. So it was basically free to drive. It felt like it wasn't, but so that's why this felt so incredible at the time. It felt like a bit of a miracle, but now that it's not, now that, depending on your driving habits, it could actually be more expensive to drive this than the diesel. I can see why they swapped the other Leaf for that lovely C-Class. There's such a special place to sit in that C-Class, it really is. I mean, it's fairly quick, this. It's fairly quick. Quicker than you think it would be by looking at it. Feel the weight going into corners. You can't do anything with this, really. Which one do you prefer?
Definitely the Mercedes.
Yeah, it's so much nicer, isn't it?
Yeah, very much.
I'm sure in time things will sort themselves out and energy prices will come back down, and running an EV compared to an internal combustion engine, the pendulum will shift again. But what I'm saying is, at the moment, it's not worth getting an EV. It's really not. And I commend people like my brother who, you know, they bought an EV nice and early adopters when it made sense, and but they're not being stubborn and sticking to their guns. You know, they are, in light of new evidence, they are going and getting a nice, lovely modern diesel, which is completely superior to this, I believe, right now, at the time of this video going out. If you can get that for the same money as this, and the running costs are arguably better in some instances, I think it's a no-brainer. And it's scary how volatile the prices of electricity can jump. When fuel went from like £1.60 up to like £1.90 really quickly last year, everyone was going crazy. It was in the news, everything. But electricity doubling in price a couple of times in a very short space of time. And the poor EV drivers, I do really feel bad for you. If you're watching this and you were an early adopter of the EV and you're really getting stung right now, it's really unfortunate. I believe my brother's commute is about an hour and a half every day. So look, this has been a really faithful commuting car for him, and it served him really well up until this point. But if things keep going as they are, I think he might even swap this for an internal combustion engine as well. Okay, so look, it's been cool driving this, you know, a bit different. It's nice, but I want to get back in that Mercedes. So let's swap back round again. This feels so much more special than the Leaf, but driving in the Leaf when it costs a fraction of the cost, like it did in 2018.
That's why I got it. That's
yeah,
it. Exactly. That's why I did it.
But that's just not. It's not the case anymore.
No.
And you could, well, you know, like your wife swapped her EV, direct swap for this car.
Yeah.
And I know what I would definitely pick. And
yeah.
for every reason, not just the running cost. So in summary, then, for right now, internal combustion engine versus pure EV. I think it's kind of undeniable right now that the EV is dead. Unless you literally within your range, you're commuting every day, you can charge at home, you're fixed on a really good rate. Right now, I wouldn't advise going out and getting a pure EV. I mean, and I am somebody who had the Taycan Turbo S on the Dadcars channel and loved that car so much that I said it's the ultimate dad car. But right now, with the infrastructure as it is, with the fluctuating costs of electricity, I don't think that crown can be placed on it. So look, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. Comment below, share this video to somebody who's thinking about buying an EV. Look, hopefully it changes in the future, and I'm sure it will, but for now, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Say goodbye, everybody. Bye.